Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today by taking you to a place we have all been. You're at a birthday party, maybe a barbecue.
Hmm.
The kids are running around, face paint everywhere, just eating way too much sugar. And you're standing there holding a lukewarm drink, chatting with another parent. And casually, just casually, they drop the bomb.
Oh, here it comes.
Oh, little Timmy is really into Harry Potter right now. We're working on his decoding skills.
Yeah.
And you look at Timmy. Timmy is 3.
3.
Meanwhile, your kid is currently trying to eat a crayon in the corner.
It is the universal parenting trigger, the comparison trap.
It's instant panic. You feel this pit in your stomach like, oh my God, I'm already failing. I haven't done flashcards. I haven't bought the app.
My kid is going to be left behind.
Exactly. So today, we are going to talk you down from that ledge.
We are. And we aren't just going to say, don't worry, because, well, that's patronizing. We're going to look at the actual mechanics of how the brain learns to read.
And we have a serious stack of research for this one. We're looking at the massive meta-analysis from the National Reading Panel. We've got cognitive science papers.
On auditory processing, yeah.
And we are looking specifically, and this is important, at the Australian Foundation English curriculum, because there is a huge gap between what parents think schools expect and what they actually expect.
A huge gap. And the headline from all these sources combined is pretty liberating. Reading is not a race.
Okay.
In fact, the research suggests that trying to sprint through the early stages, skipping the boring listening stuff to get to the flashcards, can actually give you a slower, shakier reader later on.
That is a bold claim, though, because everything in our culture says faster is better. If my kid reads at 3, they're a genius. If they read at 6, they're average. You're saying the science disputes that?
The science says that reading is a biologically unnatural process. It's not like walking or talking, which, just happen naturally if you're around people. Reading requires rewiring the brain, and you just cannot build the roof of the house before you've poured the concrete slab.
Okay, so let's look at the blueprints then. If I'm that parent at the barbecue and I'm ready to go home and drone the alphabet, you're saying, stop. So where do I actually start?
You start with the ears.
The ears.
Not the eyes, exclusively. This is what the research identifies as phase 1. We're talking about toddlers here, roughly ages 2 to 3, and the data is very specific. At this stage, the brain is building the architecture to process sound.
Okay.
It involves 0 decoding, 0 pressure to identify a letter A or B.
Wait, hang on. I have to push back here. If I want them to read, surely they need to know what the letters look like. I mean, I bought the foam bath letters, the placemat. Is that useless?
It's not useless in the sense that they're learning a shape.
Yeah.
But think of it this way. To a 2-year-old, a letter A is just a random drawing.
Like a triangle or a star.
Exactly. It's just a shape. The research notes describe this period as a time where letter drills literally have nowhere to stick in the brain yet.
Nowhere to stick. Wow, that is a painful phrase if you've spent money on those apps.
Well, the brain needs to hear and store accurate sound representations, thousands of them, before it can ever map those sounds to the symbol. If you drill the symbol first, you're asking them to memorize a code for a sound they can't even isolate yet.
Okay, so if the flashcards are just like bouncing off their forehead, what does stick?
Rhythm, repetition, the music of language.
Humpty Dumpty.
Exactly. This is why nursery rhymes exist in every culture. They aren't just cute traditions. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. That rhythm teaches the brain to predict patterns in speech.
So Humpty Dumpty is actually cognitive training.
It's highly effective training. And the other massive factor here, and I know we hear this a lot, but the data is irrefutable, is rich conversation.
But what does that actually mean? Because I talked to my kid, put on your shoes, don't eat that. Is that it?
No, that's management. Rich conversation involves what researchers call turn-taking.
The serve and return.
It's about the feedback loop. There is a concept called the vocabulary explosion between 18 and 30 months. The data shows that simply naming objects isn't enough. It's about the interaction.
Give me an example.
Okay, so you see a truck. You say, look at the big red truck. Then, and this is the key, you wait. You just wait for them to make a noise or point or say truck. And then you expand. Yes, it's a fire truck. Goes wee-woo. You are flooding the auditory system with high-quality input and waiting for a response.
So it's less about lecturing and more about tennis. You hit the ball, you wait for them to hit it back.
Exactly. And that builds the neural pathways that will eventually hold words.
Okay, so that's phase 1, foundation. We're just listening and talking. But let's move up a gear. The kid is maybe 3 or 4. We enter this territory that I find genuinely confusing. The literature keeps talking about phonological awareness.
Ah,
Now, be
right.
honest with me. Is that just a fancy academic word for phonics?
It is not.
Yeah.
And confusing the two is where a lot of parents and even some educational products go really wrong. Phonics is about print. It's about eyes. It's seeing the letter B and saying buh. Phonological awareness is entirely auditory. It's something you can do in the dark.
In the dark. I like that distinction.
Yeah. Based on the sources we reviewed, the best definition is that phonological awareness is the understanding that this stream of noise coming out of our mouths, speech, can be chopped up into smaller parts. And there's a very strict progression here.
Okay, walk us through the hierarchy, because I feel like I just jumped to the sounds.
You can't yet. The brain starts with large chunks. So the first level is word awareness.
Word awareness
It's
is...
understanding that a sentence isn't one long noise.
Oh,
I like pizza. That's 3 separate blocks of sound.
which seems obvious to us.
But for a 3-year-old, I'll eat pizza is just one event. Once they get that, you move down to syllables.
The clapping.
The classic clapping. Watermelon, 4 claps. And then the next layer down is onset and rhyme. This is realizing that cat, bat, and hat all share a sound ending.
I have to ask, though, does this actually matter? I mean, it's fun to rhyme in the car, but is this a nice to have or a need to have?
It is a must-have. The research shows that this skill in kindergarten is one of the single strongest predictors of later reading success.
Really?
Think about it. If a child cannot hear that bat and cat rhyme, if their brain can't detect that shared sound, how on earth are they going to understand it when you show them the letters later?
You're asking them to map a symbol to a sound they literally cannot hear.
They can't hear it.
So if I skip the rhyming games and go straight to the workbook, I'm building a shelf with no brackets.
And the books will fall off. You'll see it later when they try to spell. They'll just guess because they can't hear the parts.
Okay, so we've got the umbrella of phonological awareness, but then the research takes us into the deep end. Phase 3. The sources call this the secret sauce. Phonemic awareness. No, you're going to have to help me here. Phonological versus phonemic. I'm already lost.
Think of it like a Russian nesting doll. Phonological awareness is the big doll. It covers rhymes, syllables, all of it. Phonemic awareness is the tiny doll inside.
The smallest one.
The smallest. It is the ability to hear and manipulate the individual smallest atomic units of sound, which we call phones.
Kiss me.
Okay. The word ship, how many sounds do you hear?
Ship. S-H-I-P. 4. No, wait. Shh. P. 3.
3 sounds.
Yeah.
S-H-I-P. Being able to identify that, isolate the shif, and say, what if I change the ship to ish? Chip. That is phonemic awareness.
Okay.
And here is where we need to get a little technical, because the sources explain why this is so incredibly hard for kids. It's a concept called co-articulation.
Co-articulation. I read this in the notes. It sounds like a knee problem.
It's actually a mouth problem, or, well, a speech feature. When we speak, we don't say sounds like beads on a string. We don't say B-A-G. We say
Bag. Is one noise.
right, but notice your mouth. Say the word bag. Now say the word big.
Bag.
When you start to say bag, your mouth is already shaping itself for a sound before you've even released the B.
Ah,
The sounds are smooshed together. They're co-articulated.
I see. So the B in bag actually sounds slightly different than the B in big.
Exactly. To a child's brain, that smoosh packet of sound is one unit. The challenge of reading is that we have to teach them to artificially tear those sticky sounds apart so they can map them to letters.
We're asking them to do something that their ears aren't designed to do.
That's right. And this explains so much. This is why a kid looks at the word cat and just guesses kitten. They aren't hearing the parts.
Right.
And this is why the National Reading Panel meta-analysis is so aggressive on this point. Explicit instruction in phonemic awareness helping kids break that code significantly accelerates reading. But there's a nuance here, a bit of a debate.
Oh, we love a good academic throwdown. What's the argument?
The debate is, do we do this completely in the dark audio only, or do we bring letters in? For a long time, the purist view was sounds only, don't confuse them with shapes. But the more recent research, the stuff we have, suggests that while the skill is auditory, it is most effective when you eventually combine it with letters.
So we don't have to banish the alphabet magnets.
No. You don't want to wait until a child has mastered every single sound in isolation before showing them a letter. The letters can actually act as anchors for the sounds.
A visual hook.
It's a visual hook. But, and this is the big but, you don't force the letter before they can hear the sound.
It's a balance.
It is. And here is the statistic that I think will shock most parents. The National Reading Panel looked at how much time this takes. We can probably imagine years of drilling, right?
I imagine 20 minutes a day for 3 years, minimum.
The meta-analysis found that the sweet spot for phonemic awareness instruction was between 10 and 18 hours.
Wait, per week?
Total.
Total, in their whole life.
Across the intervention period in the studies, yeah. The effect sizes peaked in that 10 to 18-hour range.
Oh.
This tells us something profound. Short, focused bursts work. We were talking 15 minutes a day for a few months. Doing more drilling for an hour isn't better. It actually has diminishing returns.
That completely flies in the face of the more is more parenting culture. So if I just do 10 minutes of sound games while we cook dinner, that's actually the gold standard.
That is the gold standard. If you rush to phonics phase 4 without that 10, 18 hours of foundation, you are building on sand.
Okay, let's talk about phase 4, phonics. This is the promised land. This is the child reading a book. And this is where the Australian curriculum comes in. Because I think a lot of the anxiety comes from a misunderstanding of what is actually expected on day 1 of school.
Oh, the rumor mill on this is terrible. Parents hear that if their child isn't reading sentences by the start of pre-primary, they're behind.
I've heard that. They need to be able to read their own name in simple books.
So let's look at the document. The Australian Curriculum, ARI. If we look at the achievement standard for the end of the foundation year, remember, this is after a full year of school.
Right, at the end.
It doesn't say reads novels. The verbs are recall, recognize.
What does it say?
It says they should recall 1 or 2 events from familiar texts. It says they should recognize rhyming words, and they should know the most common sounds of letters.
Most common sounds, so not the weird exceptions and all that.
Exactly. And let's look at the satisfactory work sample they provide. There's a sample of a student retelling a story called Malu Kangaroo. The child hasn't written a perfect essay. They've drawn pictures. They're using predicting strategies.
Predicting strategies, you mean guessing?
Well, we call it predicting.
Okay.
But yes, using the picture to figure out the word.
See, I always thought that was cheating. If my kid looks at the picture of the dog to say dog, I cover the picture and say, no, look at the word.
And that's a natural instinct. But at the foundation level, using context is a reading strategy.
Yeah.
It shows they understand the book carries meaning. Of course, we want them to decode eventually. But being ready for pre-primary basically means, do they know that books have stories? Can they listen? Can they hear a rhyme? Do they know some letters? It does not mean they are fluent readers.
That is incredibly reassuring. I feel like my blood pressure just dropped 10 points.
It should. The system is designed to teach them to read. Your job is to send them in with the ears ready to hear the instruction.
Okay, so let's make this super practical. We've covered the science. We've calmed the anxiety. I want to give the listeners something they can use tomorrow morning. Tuesday morning, 7 a.m., making toast.
Okay, the Tuesday morning game.
How do I teach reading without turning my kitchen into a classroom?
Okay, so if you have a toddler, phase 1, you are making toast. You aren't quizzing them. You're narrating, I am popping the bread in. Pop, pop. Can you hear the pop? You are focusing on the sounds of the world.
Just flooding the zone with language.
If you have a preschooler, phase 2 or 3, you are playing with the words themselves. You say, I'm going to put something on your toast that starts with the sound B.
And they say butter.
Or banana. You are emphasizing the phone B. You aren't holding up the butter tub and saying, read this word. You are asking them to hear the sound.
Right.
Or you do the robot talk, pass the plate, segmenting the sentence.
My kids would actually love that. Robot talk.
And then, if they're getting ready for school, phase 4, you bridge the gap. Oh, you want the jam. Jam starts with J. Look, there is the letter J on the jar. It makes the J sound.
It's so subtle. It's not sit down and do this worksheet.
No, the sources repeatedly use words like playful and sound-focused. The minute it becomes a checklist, we must master the split digraph before breakfast. You've lost the battle. You create cortisol, and stressed brains do not learn language.
That's the checklist trap. We think we are helping, but we're just creating anxiety.
Precisely. The research says differences in these skills before school do forecast later skills. That is true, but they are highly teachable. If a parent focuses on the sounds first, the actual reading often comes with what the researchers call remarkable ease later on.
Remarkable ease. That is the goal. We want our kids to love this, not just do it.
And that's why the oral phase is the shortcut. You aren't fighting the brain, you're priming it.
Now, before we let everyone go, there is one final concept from the research that I found absolutely mind-blowing. We tend to think of this whole process as a one-way street. I teach my child sounds so they can learn to read linear. A leads to B. But the expert sources mention something called reciprocal causation.
This is a profound idea to leave you with, and it might change how you view the human brain. We know that learning sounds helps us read. That's established. But the sources suggest that learning to read actually changes how our brains hear sounds.
Oh, it goes both ways.
It does. Think about an adult who is illiterate, someone who never learned to read an alphabetic script.
Yeah.
Research shows they actually struggle to hear individual phonemes.
No way.
They hear cat as one sound. They can't delete the C to make at.
Really? So the ability to hear the bits of sound isn't just natural.
Not entirely. By teaching your child to read, you are physically restructuring their brain's auditory processing. You are installing a grid over their hearing.
Wow.
When a child learns that the word cat has 3 sounds because they see the letters C-A-T, their brain starts to hear speech differently. They stop hearing a blur of noise and start hearing the architecture of language.
That is wild. So when I'm singing that nursery rhyme for the 100th time or pointing out that ball starts with B, I'm not just teaching a skill.
No. You are building the architecture for their future intelligence. You are giving them a new way to hear the world. It's a literal brain upgrade.
I love that. It makes the nursery rhymes feel a lot more important.
They are the most important work you do.
Well, on that note, we hope this helps you breathe a little easier, put away the flashcards, turn on some music, and just talk to your kids. You're doing the work just by being there. Thanks for diving in with us.
A pleasure as always.